This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg. The fall of a crypto king.
People lost money.
To the rise of Narendra Modi.
I think you have to correct your information first.
To the business of porn.
There just wasn't an equivalent.
Each season of Understood unfolds over a handful of episodes and is hosted by a well-connected journalist you can trust. Deep insight, low time commitment. Understood. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Josh Crabb in Winnipeg. At noon, it's currently 21 and partly cloudy and 20 in Brandon this hour, mostly cloudy, and 9 in Thompson. Manitoba Liberal MP Dan Vandel says he's not reading too much into the Conservative Party win in a by-election in Toronto-St. Paul's. The seat had been a federal Liberal stronghold for decades. Some have called it a referendum on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Vandel disagrees.
Well, I would be careful not to put too much attention on one by-election. We know that we've been government for 8.5 years. We've done some very good things, excellent things for Canadians. I'm very proud of our record, and I support the Prime Minister 100%.
Vandel says he stands on the party's record of support for health care, dental care, and child care. The federal government, meantime, is giving $3.9 million to a number of Manitoba programs of economic reconciliation and cultural diversity. The money will go to 6 projects, including Westman Immigrant Services in Brandon and to a Red River Polytech program that helps develop Indigenous entrepreneurship. Jamie Wilson is the Vice President, Indigenous Strategy at Red River. He says it will help students make their dreams a reality.
So a lot of the programs, their capstone is a business proposal, and they do a presentation, and then when they're done, they get their certificate or diploma, and a lot of times they have to go back to work. So this is an opportunity for us to give supports to those students so they can pursue their business ideas.
Money from the announcement will also go to the National Indigenous Residential School Museum in Portage-la Prairie. Canada's annual rate of inflation increased in May. Price growth had been slowly stabilizing, but last month's uptick complicates that narrative. Peter Armstrong explains.
For 4 straight months, the fight against inflation was steadily showing progress, enough progress to give the Bank of Canada confidence to cut interest rates. Then, along came May's economic data. Pedro Antunes, chief economist at the Conference Board of Canada, says today's numbers are a disappointment.
The fact that across the board, core inflation measures went up, the aggregate inflation measure went up. And when you look at the month-to-month inflation at an annualized pace, that's running at 3.5%.
The real question, though, is how the Bank of Canada will see these numbers. The bank knows current interest rates are still slowing the economy. It worries that another 50% of mortgage holders are about to renew at higher rates and that will slow the economy even further. But the bank will get more data next month, and we'll want to wait and see if today's report's just a blip or the start of something more concerning. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
Manitoba's inflation also took a big jump last month. It was 1.3% in May, up from 0.4% in April. Ottawa is urging Canadians still in Lebanon to leave the country. In a statement, Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly says the security situation there is getting increasingly volatile and unpredictable and could worsen without any warning. The warning comes amid escalating fighting between Hezbollah and Israeli forces. Joly is urging Canadians in Lebanon to leave while commercial flights are still available. To Nairobi. Several protesters are dead and dozens more injured after tense clashes with police. For days, Kenyans opposing a controversial tax reform have organized nationwide demonstrations. That unrest erupted today and led to protesters setting the Parliament building on fire. Police responded with tear gas and water cannons. Medic Joe Niadi says police are also targeting aid workers and urges the government to intervene.
We are here just to give the humanitarian services. We are not having any other part of the demonstration. For us, we are just giving what is actually right for us to do.
The unpopular finance bill introduces a series of tax hikes. Kenya's president argues the money is needed to fund services without increasing the debt burden. The first plane carrying Kenyan police officers has arrived in Haiti. Their mission to help fight a surge in gang violence. Armed groups currently control most of Port-au-Prince, and they're responsible for killings, kidnappings, and sexual violence. Kenya will be leading an international force of 2,500 peacekeepers, funded mainly by the U.S. Finland will be the first country to offer bird flu vaccinations for humans. The country will offer the vaccine as early as next week to some workers 18 and older who are exposed to animals. Finland bought enough vaccines for 10,000 people to receive 2 doses. The H5N1 strain of bird flu has killed and caused the slaughter of hundreds of millions of poultry and has spread to humans in some cases. And the latest estimate from Statistics Canada suggests Canada's population will top 60 million by the year 2073. That's an increase of more than 20 million people over the next 50 years. The projection also says the number of Canadians aged 85 and older will triple over that 5-decade span. And it predicts that with an aging population and low birth rates, immigration will be the main driver of Canada's growth for the foreseeable future. That is CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local news is at 12:30. For news anytime, you can always head to cbc.ca/Manitoba or download the free CBC News app.
Hello, my friends. Thanks for joining us today for Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1. My name is Janet Stewart. Okay, now that the Stanley Cup's been awarded, those of us who had still been watching hockey may want to turn our attention to the most popular sport in the world. This could be a pivotal day for men's soccer in Canada as our national team takes on Peru at Copa America. Call in and talk soccer with Hector Vergara after the 12:30 news. A story for every mile. Hear why it's so important to historian Ed Ledachowski to preserve stories from the Boundary Trail National Heritage Region. And we begin today with talk of a highway closure that's going to impact thousands of travelers along the Trans-Canada Highway. It is a small stretch, closed for a relatively small time, but it's on the Trans-Canada, and it's sending thousands of travelers along detours. The culprit is construction in Headingley, the community just west of Winnipeg. To find out how this will impact the community and all those travelers along the Trans-Canada, we've reached Glenn Cuthbertson. He's Director of Traffic Engineering with Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure. Thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure.
So what exactly is happening in Headingley that caused this closure?
There's an overall project of reconstructing the Trans-Canada Highway through Headingley. People that go through there recognize it's undivided at the present time. The plan is to recreate it as a divided highway. As part of that, we need to have the railway crossing reconstructed, and their processes, the railway's processes, don't have options that we can continue to maintain traffic through there. So we have to look for ways to accommodate the traffic on different roads.
So what's happening right now is actually the railway reconstruction, is it?
It's part of an overall project. I mean, the railway weren't looking to do reconstruction, but as we're making changes to the highway, they need to make changes to the rail to match up.
And why is it important to make these changes and make that 2-lane?
Safer road.
It makes a big difference, does it?
It does.
Yeah.
Not being able to get across to the opposing lanes of traffic is always a safer operation.
Now, where exactly have you closed it off? Because I'm sure that's a big part of the planning for this. How you think about the impact it has on people and on travelers.
Well, it's closed locally, just west of PR 334. That's locally known as Bridge Road. The detours are defined as being from the perimeter highway out to PTH 13, which is at Oakville.
So if you're coming from Winnipeg, you'd actually go along the perimeter for a little bit.
Stay on the perimeter. There's signs guiding you to take the detour along Highway 3 at Oak Bluff and then along Highway 2, and we'll guide you along PR 248 up to Eli and continue your voyage from there. If you miss those signs, there are extra signs in closer that show some different detour routes locally around to get you back onto the main designed detour. Those are primarily for passenger vehicles. Trucks can get through there, but they're limited in some instances.
And what about for folks coming from the Portage la Prairie direction, heading toward Winnipeg?
So we're going to catch them at Oakville and send them south on Highway 13, and then along 2 and onto the perimeter from there.
How much time do you think it adds to people's commute?
If you're coming from Portage, now you're asking hard questions that I don't have pre-canned answers for. What are you looking at? Probably half an hour.
An extra half hour. Have you heard anything in terms of feedback from the community? Because an extra half hour when you're trying to get somewhere, that's not fun.
No, we did put lots of advance notice out, so we're trying to mitigate it that way. People can often make decisions that allow them to change the timing of a trip so that they're not impacted. But for those that have to, they've been given notice. It's not perfect, but we're doing everything we can in cooperation with the railway to get this done as quickly as possible so that we don't drag this out any longer than absolutely necessary.
It is such a, the Trans-Canada Highway at the end of June, a lot of people traveling places. How long are you hoping this will, when are you hoping to have it reopened,
We are planning to have it reopened on Friday.
So that is
so
quite...
We're missing the whole goal was to miss the July long weekend.
And how long does it take to plan something like this?
This has been... the detailed planning, we're probably around a year, but the whole concept of replacing that piece of road and finishing off the construction of the Trans-Canada through the community of Headingley has been ongoing for, it's probably exceeding 10 years now. A lot of it's already done. This is one of the last, there's one more piece remaining after this, and then we're finished.
And where is that piece?
That piece is just by the Bloomberg Golf Course, just east of the Bloomberg Golf Course.
What other major highway closures do you think we Manitobans should be aware of this summer?
I don't have a handy list, but I could guide all of the folks listening to check the 511 website. It'll tell you what's open, what's not, if there's delays involved, what the detours are. It's all out there for people to look at. There's a lot of advance notice in there as well, so if you're planning a trip that's got some flexibility on it, have a look there and see if you get the opportunity to leave a day early or stay a day longer and avoid the whole problem.
I'm sure you hear from us most when, people are kind of grumbling about things, but thank you for all the work you do planning to make our highways safer and better for us. And
You're welcome.
Thanks for your time today.
It's been a pleasure.
Glenn Cuthbertson is Director of Traffic Engineering with Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure.
Massey Hall, the most iconic music venue in Canada, an absolute milestone in the careers of musicians who stand on the historic stage. And you have a front row seat. The Beaches, Charlotte Cardin, William Prince, Jeremy Dutcher, July Talk, and more. CBC Music Live at Massey Hall, now available on CBC Jam.
Thank you, Toronto!
Wyatt C. Lewis is a Nahia singer-songwriter based in Calgary. You can find them playing this July at Winnipeg Folk Fest. They recently released their debut album, Chandler, and from it, this is Wyatt C. Lewis with Carefree.
Warmer nights around us, and I'm calling out. How's it hanging, Sue? What you dance about? Lift them up with spirit. I wish I knew the songs. Let them guide so they hear it. Perhaps I'm telling it wrong. So wrong. But when it hits, struck by lightning, and you're carefree with pounding drums to take you home. Night falls hard on these dusty roads. Carefree clarity. There's no weapons here. Digging roots on a full moon. What do they have to say now? On the front page news. Tell me, is it a crime to be so carefree with pounding drums to take you home? Night falls hard on these dusty roads. Carefree clarity. In the morning I'll be opening my eyes. I see so clear to me. Golden nights upon us, I'm still reaching out for a hand. And all I wanna feel is carefree and clarity. Carefree.
Carefree by Wyatt C. Lewis. It is 12:18. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Janet Stewart. Still to come, billions of people around the world follow soccer. They likely call it football. Whatever you call the sport, we want to know today why you love it. Join our calling conversation today after the 12:30 news and weather. A story for every mile. It's a small strip of land that has had an enormous impact on our province. We're going to meet the award-winning author who made Saving Stories from the Boundary Trail National Heritage Region, a labor of love, coming up next. Let's take a look at your forecast right now. We have a risk of severe weather shifts in western Manitoba today. The Westman region could see a few thunderstorms late this afternoon. There's even potential for strong wind or hail. Our next test for rain in Westman comes Friday. Long weekend looks below normal chance of super hot temperatures, but mostly sunny. So that's the good news in our forecast. In Winnipeg today, our cloud cover is going to increase. There's a good chance we'll see some scattered showers late this afternoon. A good chance of scattered showers this evening as well. Tomorrow looks sunny. Riley Lachuk will be in to take a look at the full provincial forecast and the full week a little bit later after your 12:30 newscast. This is the day the Manitoba Historical Society has its AGM and officially presents the Margaret McWilliams Awards to 3 books published last year. The winner of the local history category is a book called A Story for Every Mile, an illustrated history of the Boundary Trail National Heritage Region of southern Manitoba. It was written by historian Edward M. Ledachowski, who's with me today in our CBC studio. Thank you so much for being here, Ed.
Hi, Janet. Good to be here.
You've been prolific as an author in the decade since your retirement from the provincial government. You've written 7 books about Manitoba history in 10 years.
Yeah, pretty intense.
That's pretty intense. How does the scale of this project, A Story for Every Mile, compare with your other titles?
It's completely different. The physical size is different. The amount of themes I covered is different. The amount of time it took to put it together is different. I won't be doing this again.
No, you won't?
No, it took 7 years.
Oh, my heavens.
But I was working other projects concurrently, so...
What was it? I just held the book up for people who are watching on YouTube, but it really is large, like a coffee table book, only longer, wider. It's got beautiful maps. As I flip it open, it's heavy, and it has lots of gorgeous photographs in it. Tell me about your passion for this region. What was it about it that made you want to look into it and spend 7 years writing the story of it?
Well, it was the first in Western Canada to be settled, so it was different from virtually all other regions on the prairies. It had a large steamboat history. It was more colorful than I think any other part of the prairies because it was one of the first regions settled in Western Canada.
Boundary trails, for anyone who's not clear, describe just what part of the province we're talking about.
Okay, it's right along the international border, and during the pioneer settlement era, there was a trail created by Her Majesty's North American Boundary Commission to lay out the international boundary, and because it was a bona fide trail, the settlers began to use it, and for the next decade, it was the Trans-Canada of the prairies.
So many stories. Heritage Canada recognized Boundary Trail as a national heritage region back in 1991. What are the natural features that make this area so special?
Well, that's another interesting thing, because if you go west from Winnipeg, you don't really see too much of a change in the landscape. But if you were to follow Highway 3 closer to the border, there's quite a change from the flat Lake Agassiz clay plain to the Manitoba Escarpment, to the Pembina River Valley, which was the former Glacial Lake Souris meltwater spillway. So there's a lot of geography along the border region, which you don't see traveling along Trans-Canada. And that's just the geography. And then I'll get into the history, which is completely different.
And that's the part that you love, the history.
Yeah. It was very much like the American Wild West. more than any other part of, I think, the Canadian prairies. It was very exciting, very colorful, with the Mounties Great Trek West, Northwest Mounted Police began there, Boundary Commission began there. There's all sorts of history that occurred.
Is there a story for every mile, truly? And if
Well, that's
so,
what they said, but yes, I think so.
Can you tell us one?
There's so many, which is why the book was supposed to be a maximum of 100 pages. But there was so many good stories and lots of information that it got to be 140 pages, tabloid size, which is like double the normal. So to pick one, I would say the steamboat history. Manitobans don't realize we had an incredibly colorful steamboat history and lake steamer history. Before the railway, everything that came up that was heavy and couldn't fit on the Métis ox cart brigades came by steamboat. So it was amazing history.
Would it come up all the rivers or mostly the Red?
Well, it depended on the amount of rainfall. Mostly it was from Fargo up north, but in the early 1880s, we had a lot of rain, so it permitted steamboat transportation on the Assiniboine River, even as far as Fort Pelly, which is actually in Saskatchewan. So there was a thriving steamboat industry. So that's very colorful, and I have information on that. And even though I say I'm not doing any more books, I've done all the research, so I just might do that.
You might do one more.
Yeah.
Where did you find all your information?
Working well into the night, looking at digital archives. I couldn't do much writing late at night, but I could do my research late at night. So over the past 7 years, I actually I've become an extreme night hawk. It continuing to this day, but yeah, it was just online research.
Amazing to think that this is all online these days.
Pretty much. Of course, the local information, I read local newspapers, magazines, and all the local history books I could find. But all the imagery pretty much came online, and the Manitoba archives, of course. And, yeah.
You've had some help. I know there were people you're going to give shout-outs to who are suddenly modest and don't want to be mentioned, but how much help do you get from local organizations? There are people who are passionate about their areas and who form, historical societies.
Yeah.
What value do these societies have?
Huge. They're the keepers of our history. They let me go through all their personal archives. There's a lot of little museums that have photographs on the wall that are amazing, that aren't scanned or digitized and things. So we really need to put more money into saving our history. But it was good. I visited all the local museums. I read all the local history books. I know all about Mennonite history now. It's fascinating.
What would you say to people as we sit here on the cusp of a summer to go visiting people or places?
You could easily spend days driving along the border region. There's a new park right on the border, Pembina Valley Park, which is amazing, which is like the only part of the Pembina Valley that's still forested in its natural forest area. And all the architecture there. You need to know a little bit of history before you go because you wouldn't know what you're looking at. But there's natural places. The architecture is really quite amazing. There was a lot of masonry work down there, which you don't see now because of our winters. The stone tends to crack. But there's lots of masonry buildings there. There's even some log buildings left. There's something called molded concrete blocks, which was popular at the turn of the century. Like something akin to our cinder block now, but it was much more fancy. It was hugely popular for about a decade. And even the change in architectural styles. All the immigrants brought architectural styles familiar to themselves. So when they first settled, it was all rough and ready, just meant to last a couple of years. And then they built what was familiar to them back home. So even the people come from Southern Ontario had their own style. They were, and the Icelanders had their own styles, Ukrainians had their own styles, and of course the Mennonites with their whole villages, which were recreated on the Canadian prairies. So it's very, very different in southern Manitoba along the border region than anywhere else on the prairies.
The Margaret McWilliams Awards are one of the oldest book awards of their kind in our country. What does it mean to you to be awarded one for local history?
Well, first it's important to have it preserved. And it's good to have heritage grants, to have people like me delve into the raw material and to bring it to the masses, because you have to know your history. I was reading in the 1920s from a farm magazine, and they were talking about Mussolini rising in the 1927, and how he decided that they were going to have he didn't need any opposition parties because they know what they were doing. And we all know what happened there. So just even coming across that, it's important to know your history, least you repeat it.
Ed Ledahowski, thank you so much for joining us today. And congratulations on this award.
Thank you very much. Nice to be recognized after all that work.
Yes, I imagine. Where can people buy this book if they'd like to?
I believe they should contact the Pembina Manitoba Archive. They're the ones who are distributing it. And we were selling it for cost, because it wasn't about making money. It was all being sold at cost, and we had some donations given, so they're being given as gifts to schools and municipal offices.
That's wonderful. You must feel good about that.
I'm glad I'm finished it.
Well, we're looking forward for the next book that you say you're not going to write, but you might just.
I might just.
You might just. Ed Ledahowski, thank you so much. Again, that was the Pembina Manitou Archive that is selling the book. You can find that at pembinamanitouarchive.mb.ca. Well, it's almost 12:30. It's time to start our calling conversation. We want to hear about you and the beautiful game. Why do you love soccer? Give us a call, 204-780-0893. It's time now for your 12:30 news.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Josh Crabb in Winnipeg. At 12:30, it's currently 22 and mainly cloudy, 16 with light rain in Dauphin, light rain, and 10 in Flin Flon. Our Red River Polytech program that helps Indigenous entrepreneurship is getting a boost from the federal government. It is one of 6 programs in the province that will share $3.9 million. Jamie Wilson is the Vice President of Indigenous Strategy, Research, and Business Development at Red River. He says the money will help support students take the next steps into a career.
Their idea is not only affirm these students' potential as entrepreneurs, but they also have real profound community impacts which benefit us all. However, too many of these ideas get shelved because students don't have access to income, capital, tools, mentors, or other essentials that turn innovation into a reality.
Other programs receiving support include the National Indigenous Residential School Museum, a Toskiwin Training and Employment Center in Nissachawayasik Cree Nation, and Westman Immigrant Services in Brandon. One Manitoba Liberal MP is advising people not to read too much into a Conservative victory in a by-election. Yesterday, the Liberals lost a long-standing seat in Toronto St. Paul's. Some called it a referendum on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. St. Boniface MP Dan Vandel says he still supports Trudeau.
I'm very proud of our record, our accomplishments, and whether it's dental care, health care, or child care. And I think the key question is, I think Canadians are going to ask themselves, is what sort of Canada do you want to live in?
Vandel says people will have to choose if they want a government that supports people and programs or one that cuts. The next federal election is expected in October of 2025. Police in Nairobi opened fire on protesters today outside the Kenyan parliament. That's police firing live rounds, rubber bullets, and tear gas. One report says at least 10 people have been killed. The police response followed the demonstrators storming government buildings and setting fires. MPs are being escorted to safety. The protests follow the passage of a bill that calls for a series of tax increases. And the Winnipeg Jets have signed defenseman Dylan DeMello to a 4-year contract extension, the club announced Tuesday. The deal carries an average annual value of $4.9 million. The 31-year-old played all 82 games for the Jets last season, setting career highs with 31 points and 28 assists. He also had a team-best plus 46 rating, second highest in the NHL, and led the Jets with 139 blocked shots. That is CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local news is at 1:30.
Thank you very much, Josh Crabb.
You're welcome.
Riley Lachuk joins us as well in studio. Hello, Riley.
A lot less humid today.
Yes,
Janet.
I noticed the difference. It feels better.
A lot more pleasant today, but a bit of a mixed bag for our forecast.
Especially in the Westman region.
Yes. Risk we could see some thunderstorms rolling through western Manitoba today, which we'll get into. Satellite radar right now showing mainly sunny sky, really, Trans-Canada Highway and south. The Interlake, northwestern Ontario into sort of just some high-level sun-cloud mix at the moment, and starting to see a little bit of instability starting to fire up into western Manitoba, particularly sort of along that Highway 5 corridor between Dauphin and Roblin, Grandview, Gilbert Plains, looking at a few showers at the moment as well, just rolling through. Nothing that's really giving us any thunderstorm activity, but we could see that kind of firing up as we get to the late afternoon. Kind of Portage La Prairie west into Brandon, Verdun, Russell, into the Riding Mountain National Park region. That's kind of the best shot we have today at some severe weather this afternoon, kind of contained to that western side of the province. Moderate risk, we could see some severe weather, the potential for hail up to the size of quarters, wind gusts to 90 kilometers an hour, and we could see some pockets of rain where we see up to 30 millimeters at once. So just keep that in mind. Doesn't mean you're going to see a thunderstorm in your community in western Manitoba, but certainly the potential there as we get into the later afternoon of seeing a few thunderstorms rolling through the region. Today, we are looking at a good chance we could see a few scattered showers across southern Manitoba, especially through the late afternoon, early evening hours. Not talking about a soaking rain per se, but we could see a few raindrops. One of those, like I like to call it, sort of, raining 1 minute, back to sunshine a few minutes later, sort of a deal. So sort of a hit and miss sort of showers what we're looking at as we head into the evening hours tonight. Tomorrow, Wednesday, starting mainly sunny, really province-wide, just a few clouds here and there, and that's how our Wednesday sets up to be a mainly sunny day. Mainly sunny heading into Thursday as well, but we start to see as we get through the later days some clouds building into the west. This ahead of another weak area of instability that will bring us some rain as we head through the day on Friday. Today in Winnipeg, I've got us at 23 this afternoon. Chance I could see some scattered showers. Best chance for that to the west. Brandon, Portage, Verdun, all at 22 this afternoon. 16 the high in Dauphin. 17 mainly cloudy in Thompson this afternoon. We're looking at 22 tomorrow, mainly sunny. 24, a clearing sky as we head through the day on Thursday, but clouds build in once we get into Friday once again with a high of 18 degrees, periods of light rain. And Janet, Saturday and Sunday for the long weekend. A little bit below seasonal, but we get the sunshine both Saturday and Sunday.
When you say a little bit below seasonal?
19 for Saturday, 23 for Sunday.
Okay,
so
good.
Not 30 degrees.
A lot of people would prefer that to 30 degrees.
I certainly prefer 23.
Yeah, well, there you go. So we're heading toward just about perfect.
Yeah, and very quick sneak peek. Monday, we're looking at mainly sunny skies, the potential for some thunderstorms late in the day.
Okay, thanks so much for keeping an eye on this for us, Riley.
No problem.
Riley Lachuk is our weather specialist here at CBC Manitoba. He'll be back during Up to Speed today between 3 and 6 p.m. and also on our newscast tonight. CBC Winnipeg News at 6, which you can watch anytime in the evening on our YouTube stream, CBC Manitoba. Just go to YouTube and search CBC Manitoba.
Something has changed, I swear. It's time that I face it. Don't like to say out loud, I'm getting older. Over and over. Yeah, but I'm fine. I guess I still got a fair bit of time. After the people have gone, and it's just me me and you. I hope that you know you belong in this place I brought you. A love that's so fine. And I guess we still have a fair bit of time. Somehow I always know whatever time I got left, gonna give you every moment, every breath. Somehow I know it to be true. It's never time wasted, the time I spend with you.
Winnipeg artist Field Guide with the song Fair Bit of Time from a new album titled Rootin' For Ya. Well, what team will be rootin' for... What team will you be rooting for is what I meant to say there. I think I know which team it might be when it comes to a big game tonight in men's soccer. This is quite a moment we're in for soccer in Canada, and we want to hear from you what the beautiful game means to you. Why do you love soccer? Give us a call, 204-780-0893. Again, 204-780-0893. Tonight, Canada's men's soccer team has a huge opportunity on the international stage. The team is in Kansas City competing in Copa America, the championship organized by South America's football ruling body. Argentina is the defending champion. Canada held its own in its first game against Argentina, but lost 2-0 to that top-ranked team. Tonight, Canada faces Peru. Will you be watching, and why? Why does soccer mean so much to you? Give us a call. Let's talk about this. 204-780-0893. We know the gentleman who joins us as our special guest will be keeping an eye on this match for sure. He's one of the key figures in Manitoba's soccer community, one of the best known for certain. Hector Vergara is Executive Director of the Soccer Manitoba Association, and he joins us by Zoom. Hector, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us, Janet. Appreciate it.
Canada was invited to attend Copa America as one of 6 qualifiers from CONCACAF. That's the region comprised of North and Central America and also the Caribbean. How big an opportunity is it to be at this tournament for Team Canada?
Was massive, particularly because Canada, as we all know, is getting ready to host or be part of the big countries that are hosting the 2026 World Cup. And they came out of being back at the World Cup in 2022 after many years of since 1978, since they were at last World Cup, and 2022 was the comeback year. So they come back to play in the World Cup, and now they're going to prepare to host. So being involved in a competition like Copa America, which is obviously the South America CONMEBOL's, which is the South American Confederation, CONMEBOL's elite competition involving all of their national teams in the region. And, you have teams like World Cup champions, Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay. All these teams have won the World Cup in the past, and they're always present, in most cases, I would say, present in the World Cup. So being part of this competition, which is not normal for the teams in the CONCACAF region to participate in the top competition in CONMEBOL. However, this time around, there's a number of teams involved in that competition. And it is a great challenge for the Canadian team because you're playing world powers. And it's an exciting time for Canada. And now that we're back at the World Cup, and now that we're hosting or part of the hosts, there's an opportunity to get prepared and be ready to do well at the World Cup. Obviously, want to do well at the Copa America as well, but it is a difficult competition.
204-780-0893. That's the number to call to join our conversation. We want to know, what does soccer mean to you? Why do you love it so much? And what difference does it make when you can watch a Canadian team on the world stage? What are you hearing, Hector, from the local community in terms of excitement about this?
Well, this is a very unique time of the year in 2024, these two months of June, July, because you have the UEFA Championship going on as well. And we know that our community in Manitoba is very diverse. We have a lot of following from different parts of the world, and they obviously follow their national teams. If they immigrated to Canada, I'm an immigrant to Canada as well, and I follow the competitions because of the teams that you follow when you were back home. So not only you have the UEFA Championship, and you also have Copa America, and then you have on top of Copa America, which is usually for the 10 countries in South America that participate. Now you have additional countries from CONCACAF. So there is a lot of excitement in the air. There's a lot of parties hosting games, depending on where you come from, who you support. But the reality is that now there's more people supporting Canada, and we see this. It has been a change over the last few years, where Canada's soccer culture is starting to change a bit, and we had difficulty. And I remember this because I lived it. I lived it myself when Canada 20 years ago, when I was active in the international scene, and I used to do exhibition games with Canada, and you went to Toronto to do a game between Turkey and Canada, and the majority of the fans in the stands, out of 16,000 people, 12,000 of them were from Turkey, and then only a small population of Canadians were attending the games. Now that's changed. That's changed dramatically with the success of the women's program and now the men's program, where you can go to a Commonwealth Stadium, you can go to a BC Place and actually have 50, 60,000 people, most of them wearing red and white and cheering for Canada. That's a different culture than it was 20 years ago, when it wasn't that support for the Canadian team. And so things have changed, and this is reflective in the youth of our country and the youth even in our own province, obviously, that there is a huge support for the Canadian team now.
And there's been also sort of a marked attempt, I think, to make soccer, to support soccer in Canada and the United States as well. Like to see a South American tournament happening in cities all around the United States. That's got to be a decision made by people who want to see the sport grow in that market.
Well, it's a strategic marketing, right? At the end of the day, it's also very, very smart in the sense of financially prudent. I mean, the stadiums in the United States are huge. Not every country in South America has these huge stadiums that the United States has. And therefore, knowing that the United States and Canada are countries that have diverse ethnic backgrounds as part of their population, it's a smart idea to bring the tournament there, because you have support for everyone, and you create real neat atmosphere at the stadium. People, and it makes it easy for people in Canada to travel to the United States to attend the competition. This is something that it's easier to do than to travel to Europe, for example, to attend a competition. So marketing-wise, very intelligent by the organizers to bring the competition. And they did this because the last time Copa America, or what they call Centenario, was in the United States a few years back, that was very successful. So they learned from that, and now they bring the competition back again. And there is such a following for every country that it creates fantastic environments.
204-780-0893. Why do you love soccer, and who are you cheering for? If they're not in this tournament, what's your team? Tell us what it is that makes you love the beautiful sport so much. Let's talk about Canada's chances against Peru. First of all, the first match was against Argentina. I don't think anyone thought Canada had a chance against that powerhouse, but How did we do? What did you see in that match that you actually liked from the Canadians?
There's a different approach by the Canadian national team in the last few years, and this started with John Herman. You know that we are, as Canadians, very respectful. We're very kind people. We're very friendly, and sometimes too nice, and that translated into the pitch for many years. The Canadian team was seen as a team that wasn't very difficult to play against, that would behave properly on the field, that would not initiate incidents, not very aggressive, not very assertive. I don't mean that it has to be violent. I don't mean that it has to be dirty in any way, but it was just willing to accept what happened. And now the mentality of the Canadian players changed. And it changed again with John Herman and has continued. And that is that now we're the initiators. We don't step back from, we push back. If there is difficult situations, the team fights hard and it pushes back. And the team has had now more success because of the mentality, because of the fact that we have more players playing in the international scene in different competitions around the world. So the experience of these players that they gain abroad and they bring back to the competition at home is very favorable for Canada. And it teaches them how to be difficult and deal with difficult situations. And some of the players that were part of the previous history of Canada realize what an 8-0 in Honduras is like, and what it is to play in environments like Central America, in the Caribbean, very difficult environments. And the more that Canadian players experience that, the easier it is for them to deal with the situations that they're dealing with now, playing in Argentina, the world champions, in a packed stadium where the majority of the fans were from Argentina. And to listen to the sound and the pounding of the stadium up and down, and it rocks, like the stadium's rocking the entire game. They don't stop singing. They create that pressure. So it's not just the pressure of playing the best team in the world champions, but it's also their fans, and that the media, all of the things that happen around an event like this. So how did we do? I think that Canada was a team that pushed forward, that wasn't afraid, wasn't a team that was going to park the bus, as we say. It wasn't going to sit back. They had some opportunities, and maybe the score line could have been a little bit different had we score a goal and open it up for a little bit more of a counter-attacking and creating opportunities for the team. And the reality is Canada is playing well. In the last few years, played better. However, we need to score, and this has been our issue. We've gone a few games now without scoring a goal. So we need to put the ball in the back of the net. You can't win the soccer games without, you can win 1-0, but you need at least one. So defensively, we've been playing well. The goalkeeper has been playing well. New goalkeeper for Canada. There was a lot of positive things to take from that game. Again, you can't give teams like Argentina and Peru and Chile and the teams from Central and South America, you can't give them too many opportunities. They're eventually going to score if you don't put one in the back of the net yourself and open up the game.
What do you think of our chances tonight against Peru? Peru hasn't been playing well.
No, they haven't been playing well, and they drew against Chile. But again, when you talk about these teams, Peru and Chile, they're always, when you look at World Cup qualifying history, they're usually around the middle of the table. So they're not pushovers, but at the same time, they're not Brazil and they're not Argentina and they're not Uruguay. And we do have a chance, but I think part of it is we got to score that goal. We got to score that goal early and put the pressure on them so they can open up the game. And then the speed of the Canadians can take over on the wings and the crosses and everything else that comes with it. We have quality players and we have quality finishers that just need to have a little bit of luck. And in the game, sometimes it's about a little bit of luck. We didn't have it against Argentina. Maybe we can have a little bit against Peru and score a couple of goals.
Hector Vergara, I hope we do. Regardless, thank you for your time today. Thanks so much for being with us.
Not a problem. And enjoy the competition. This is fantastic for Canada. It's a good preparation for the World Cup. And hope to see many more red and whites out there watching the games and enjoying the competition. So thank you for having us.
Oh, our pleasure. Hector Vergara is Executive Director of the Manitoba Soccer Association. Team Canada taking on Peru tonight at Copa America. If you were to draw the Northern Lights, what color crayon would you pick? Many people would go for the green, but there are times when you see purples and pinks. This week on the CBC podcast Good Question, Saskatchewan's listeners asked why they're seeing more colors in the red and magenta range these days. They were worried it might be related to climate change. Daniel Billett is a postdoctoral fellow in engineering and physics at the University of Saskatchewan, and he explains why that's happening.
The aurora is happening about 100 to 200 kilometers in altitude, so it's very, very far. Basically nearly space, but not quite. But the aurora happens because of the air. It's the air there is receiving some energy from space, and then when it releases that energy, it then emits some wavelengths of light, and that wavelength of light then dictates what the color is. So most people see green, red, magenta. So that corresponds to the specific wavelengths that it's given off. The colors themselves haven't changed because the composition of the atmosphere, especially that high, hasn't changed. It's very high. It's much higher than the layers of the atmosphere that we consider related to climate change. Way too high for that. So short answer, no, the composition hasn't changed. But what does change over longer periods of time is the solar cycle and how active the sun is. So right now we're at the very peak of an 11-year solar cycle. So at the maximum of when the sun is basically its most active. So if you're more likely to see aurora now than basically any previous time in the last 5-6 years. So 11 years is a fairly long time scale. So people might notice that the aurora might come in waves over the course of their lifetime. As for why they might have been seeing different colors, it could be related to the strength of the aurora, because I mentioned earlier you see the aurora and you see it like a big curtain moving up in altitude, and that's really, really tall, several hundred kilometers. So if the aurora is directly over you, then suddenly you're not seeing the curtain, you're just seeing directly the bottom of it. And right at the bottom is magenta. That's the nitrogen in the air giving off light. But if you then see it from the side, so if you can see the full curtain, then you're more likely to see green, because you're basically seeing the big altitude range between 100 and 200 kilometers, where oxygen is the dominant light emitter, and then that gives off green, and then at higher altitudes red. So what colors you see depend on where you are and your angle to looking at the side of the big range of altitudes of light.
That's Daniel Billett from the University of Saskatchewan. He was speaking to the CBC podcast Good Question, Saskatchewan. You can find this week's episode about the Northern Lights on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find Up to Speed there. Hello, Faith Fundal.
Hello, Janet Stewart.
What's happening in today's program?
So you know how some folks like to bike all sorts of places. People going to the Forks now have a more secure way of keeping their bikes at the Forks. The Forks is starting a bike check program. So we're going to talk more about what having this secure program might mean for bike thefts and for how it might encourage more people to bike to the Forks and use our trail networks.
Smart idea, right?
I know every time I go to the Forks and I have my bike, it can sometimes be challenging to find a spot to actually lock your bike because it's so busy. So we'll see what folks think about that.
We're looking forward to hearing it. Thank you so much, Faith. Faith Fundal hosts Up to Speed, which is on from 3 to 6 p.m. here on CBC Radio 1, and you can listen to it anywhere on the CBC News app or on your CBC Listen app. Thank you so much for joining us today for Radio Noon. It's a treat, as always, to spend some time with you. I want to thank all the people who worked hard to bring this program to you today. Thanks to everyone who joined on our YouTube stream. Remember, we want to get your questions in. So whenever you have comments, give us your comments. And Travis Peterson, the folks who put the show up, will translate those for me. Let me know what you're asking. Travis, thanks for your work today. And always, May McKillop, our studio technician. Thank you so much, May. Thanks so much, Marshall, as well, who's busy taking notes. And I'm sorry I don't know your last name, or else I'd say thanks, Marshall. Wendy Parker is our studio director. Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson are our heads of unit. And I'm Janet Stewart. I'll be back tomorrow, and I hope you will be too. You're listening to CBC Radio 1. Coming up next, it's unreserved. Have a fabulous Tuesday.